Hello and welcome to the Mass Singers Management YouTube channel. I have today with me Andrew, and the reason why I want to talk with Andrew today is because he is a master of sales. And as some of you know, I absolutely suck at everything sales and marketing. And I figured a fair few of my colleagues and a fair few of the people working as entrepreneurs really struggle with sales as well, particularly on the sort of technical end of the spectrum, right? So Andrew is nothing less than a sales trainer, and he actually helps different businesses and different owners in particular how to sell better. So I thought it was super interesting to talk with Andrew today and get him to spill all the beans. So Andrew, do you want to go ahead and first and foremost just do a quick intro to yourself to the audience, and then later on we can go into some of your magic.
So Mads, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's fantastic to be on every single podcast. And thank you again. I actually really enjoy sales, and it's something that's, I wouldn't say it's come naturally to me in the beginning, but it's something that's really grown on me ever since I first started in this career. But so I always like to start these things off just to tell you a little bit more about who Andrew is kind of as a person, so that you guys can connect a little bit better. So who I am is I live out here in Southern California in the United States, and I've been out here for my whole life. I really enjoy the outdoor hobbies, so I love the mountains, I love to go rock climbing, I love the ocean, so I love to fish. I also love to go out during the wintertime, go skiing and snowboarding. So that's kind of a little bit about me on a personal level. And on a professional level, so I've gone through the gamut of going through high school and college and all the rest of those things, and getting my degree and certain certifications and whatnot. But I found myself after graduating in the sales world. Actually, by trade, I'm an engineer, but I found myself planted inside of the sales engineering world, and it really did grow on me. As I said before, I'm not a natural born sales guy. Didn't have any desire to go into sales, as you can tell, because I was an engineer. I graduated as an engineer in college. But I've been through the sales world for over the past decade. I've been very successful in the past with different very small companies. I was one of a 2-person company, medium-sized, 40 people, large-sized, Fortune 500 company. And I was very successful in every one of those companies, making it to one of the top sales guys in each individual role. So I'd love to be able to share with you guys why I'm so passionate about it and how I was able to become successful to try to help your audience out as much as possible.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm super excited because I love learning, and as I said, sales is not my natural cup of tea, that's for sure. I'm of the convention that as long as you sell a good product, people will buy it, but that's not always the case. So you sometimes need to sharpen up on your sales skills. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about your sort of philosophy and your strategies and so on.
Exactly, Mads. So are you if I can actually start out with kind of a comment on that. So my philosophy about sales is not about getting the wrong person into a product. It's all about matching up the right person with the right product. So my whole philosophy of sales, and why I believe in sales so strongly, is not because I want to be your quote-unquote used car salesman. I don't want to sell you something that's not right for you. I don't want to sell you something that's more expensive than actually what you need, or something that's less expensive so that you're not satisfied with the product that you get. My job as a sales guy has always been selling the highest quality product for that specific person. And by that I mean, what we come through with sales is we always want to come through with a solution. So every sale is a solution to a problem. And it's as simple as that. So this isn't anything about me trying to wine and dine you to be able to say, hey, I'm going to take you to the beach. I'm going to give you that trip to Mexico. I'm going to take you to the top of the Empire State Building, and because I do that, you need to buy my product. That's not the sales technique that I use. That is what some other people use, and granted, they can be successful with that, but this is about us as salesmen and sales gals trying to form long-term relationships with our customers. And the whole philosophy about why I choose to do sales the way that I do things is to be able to create a relationship and to create a win-win relationship with your customer. So it's all about helping the customer out as much as humanly possible so that when you sell them the product, they're actually happy to give you money for it and they see a positive result in the end.
And I think that's important, right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, like I've been there myself, like we're often sitting and even though you have a good product, you kind of, sometimes you kind of still feel you're trying to fool people into buy it, right? Or you're kind of like, oh, how do I get them to say yes? And then I think your focus makes a ton of sense, right? I mean, focusing on what do they actually need, and reality is there's a ton of people who need your product, right? So
Exactly. And whether we really don't want to go down the wrong path, and exactly what Matt's saying, you don't want to sell people what they don't need. There's so much noise out in this world, whether it's on the internet, whether it's in person, whether it's at the mall that you go to. There's so many distractions that are around this world. And you'll notice as a consumer, as a customer, that everybody is fighting for your attention. But let me ask you a question, Mads. Have you ever gone to either one shop or one car lot, or perhaps even got into contact with somebody online, where you could honestly tell that the way that when you purchased the product from that person, you were very happy and pleased with the sales experience? Has that ever happened?
yeah, that has definitely happened a few times. I mean, I've bought a few products that I've been super happy with, and after the sales call or whichever, like super good experience. So definitely.
Yeah, and so be able to convey that message to the viewers here on your channel. That's really the goal of that should be the goal of every single salesman that's out there. Now, that isn't the goal of everybody that's out there. A lot of salesmen are out there just because they want to make a dime off you, and they want to sell something that they get a ton of commission for, and they don't really care about the customer if the customer is unhappy. But a true salesman or saleswoman is out there to benefit the customer as much, and they want them to be happy and satisfied after the sales experience has already been done, for the customer to say, you know what, that was such a pleasurable experience. I'm so happy that I bought this product, and I know that the man behind this product really means good, and I'm going to benefit. I'm really going to receive my return on investment afterwards. That's where a lot of people really go the wrong way in thinking about sales, in the negative connotation, where they say, I hate doing sales. It's not that we're trying to trick people into buying something that they really don't need. It's all about, how can I get my customer the right product and have them be as happy as humanly possible with what they're purchasing from me. And always remember, if you can't get them, if your product isn't the right fit to your customer, don't sell it to them, because it's not going to do you any good in the end either. You may get a short amount of satisfaction with $200, $2,000, $2 million, whatever it may be, but in the long run, that customer will never come back to you. And you know what? He's going to tell 5 to 10 people how you screwed him over on that sale, and those 5 to 10 people are going to tell 5 to 10 more, and you know how that snowball effect works. On the opposite, if you treat the customer well, man, I had such a great experience buying from Mads. It was so awesome. I would love to tell my 3 or 4 friends about it, and not only am I going to tell them about it, I'm going to tell them exactly how I benefited from the product, exactly what I did with it. Same snowball effect happens. They go through the experience, they get to tell their friends, and that's how you really grow your relationships, and that's actually how you really grow your business.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense, and I mean, honestly, like, luckily for me, I haven't really been in that situation, but I definitely work with a bunch of entrepreneurs that, they're so desperate to get cash on the on the bank balance, right? I mean, when you're sitting and have $50 or $100 or a couple of $100 left on your bank account, and you're desperate, I can definitely understand what the mindset that brings them to try and make sales, even if it's not, let's say, the right thing to do. So I can totally follow that, and I can totally understand as well personalities that are much more focused on, let me sign this client, right? But I really love the way you're thinking about sales.
Yeah, I can tell you, like, I'm going through an experience with a client right now, or not with a client. I'm actually a client of somebody else's, and it's interesting because you go through these experiences as a consumer, as a customer, and it's always tough when we're out there in the marketplace to find the people that are really behind their products. I mean, I can honestly say that the amount of people that are trying to sell you something that you don't need to the people that are trying to sell you something that you do need, unfortunately, the ratio is a little bit more on the negative side than it is on the positive side. But that actually leaves a big opportunity for the correct sales guys and gals that are doing things in ethical and in a positive limelight. But to go back to the example that I was talking about before is, I can tell you that this guy, he was trying to create a relationship with me, and he was trying to sell me a product, and he hard sold me at the beginning, told me I was going to get an ROI back in 3 months. That ROI never came. He told me that he's got not a money back guarantee, but a guarantee that his service was going to work. And then at that 3 month point in time, I came back to him and said, hey, we worked many hours on this together. I didn't put my heart and soul into it, but I put all the effort that I should have put into it, and you guys didn't actually do it on your end as well. What's the status? How are we moving forward? And unfortunately, he said, well, our policy is this, and this. It's like, well, that's not the policy that it was in the beginning. So, okay, well, now I understand that you're just in it to make a quick buck, and you're trying to turn the next sale and get people in the door as soon as I can. And the funny thing about this is an individual, and I'm not going to name any names here, but this is an individual where I can tell that he's had multiple different companies in the past. So having multiple different companies in a short period of time, I think he's had maybe 3 companies in maybe 9 years or less. So 3 different companies in 9 years or less. Let me ask you a question, Mads. What do you think of that? The very first thought, if you think, okay, so I'm trying to invest with a guy that's had 3 companies within 9 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think the volume of companies in a situation like that is per se a bad thing. I think, I see a lot of freelancers who do one thing and then jump to the next. It doesn't necessarily mean they aren't good at it, but I think there's always a lot to be said, with the value people are getting, right? Like for my management course, for example, we do a full money back guarantee. And again, with my coaching, like if anyone have ever been unhappy, like I would much rather refund them and have someone who doesn't walk away dissatisfied, right? Like, because in the end of the day, like I know that 99% of the customers that we provide a very positive ROI, right? And in all of our businesses, I mean, I run a VA business as well, right? Where I mean, once in a while, like we hire human beings for other people, right? And because we're dealing with human beings, sometimes stuff doesn't go right? And we just had a client recently called Chris, and we hired someone that didn't end up working out, and obviously I hate that big time, because it sucks when you can't deliver, right? But again, like, we're very, very lenient on sort of our policies, and we try and not tie people up. Like, we don't tie them up into multiple year contracts and things like that, exactly to avoid some of those situations, right? And the fundamental thing for us is really making sure that when we're looking at the customer experience, that it's a great thing for them, right? And obviously it's super sad when a customer doesn't have a great experience, but at least you want to try and limit the blow as much as you can, right?
Exactly. You want to be able to support your customer as much as you can. And I know, so how long is, like, you've been doing this for a long time, Mads, but I mean, the one thing that always catches my attention is I used to work for a Fortune 500 company, and I used to work for a Fortune 500 company that's been around for I think they've been around for over 100 years. It's something to be said about those companies, because when they're around for that long, they're doing something right. Like, they've got a ton of pleased customers. They've been treating their customers the right way, and not to say that the companies that haven't been around for very long shouldn't be trusted, but definitely the ones that have been around for a long time, they know how to treat their customers right. they know exactly what it takes to maintain their customer base and to not form that bad reputation.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think one of the challenges probably is, I mean, when you're talking about a company been around 100 years, they're probably not into online marketing, because if they were,
Yeah,
they probably wouldn't have been around 100 years. But
exactly right.
one of the challenges with a lot of online entrepreneurs, I mean, if they're looking for Facebook ads people, or if they're looking for some of these sort of reasonably new technologies, like there's not a ton of companies out here that have been on the market for 10 years, right? Simply because a lot of time, like these,
Even
some of
5 years.
these big, yeah, even 5 years, right? So
Yeah.
like a lot of the time, it is difficult, right? To sort of use track record, and particularly in online world, like I like personally, when I'm looking for services and when I'm buying, like I always ask my friends, I always ask my network and people I know, right? And I think, like personally, that's like in the end of the day, you still get burnt, right? It happens, but in like from my point of view, that's the best way for me to verify like the service I'm about to pay a fair chunk of cash for is actually worth that. So
Exactly right. And going back to sales, it's such a big piece in sales that I think a lot of, whether the young individuals, entrepreneurs, a lot of people forget about the whole relationship piece in sales. So a sale can come through word of mouth, or it can come through relationships without you actually even having to sell them. Such as yourself, Mads, when you ask people, okay, so I took a look at this thing online, but I need to figure out, is this Facebook ad service really what I want? Well, his name is Joe Smith. Let me just ask my friends and buddies, has anybody heard of Joe Smith? I see that you're on, you've got a TEDx talk or something like that, or you're featured on CNN.com. What exactly is it that people are saying out there in the market? And then to be able to form those relationships in sales, whether they're with your current customers, your customers in the past, to be able to see the customers that you're going to have, or that you're trying to push through your pipeline and create a relationship with them, it's very important, because without that trust factor, without people really being able to know who you are, it's very hard to sell them.
yeah, I mean that makes a ton of sense, right? And that's generally the way it works, right? Particularly, I mean, there's a big difference if you're selling a $20 product. That's very different from selling $1,000 or $3,000 product, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, totally agree. I mean, trust is key, and that's also, I mean, honestly, like a lot of the communities I'm in and so on, like it's so obvious to see how valuable the trust is, and it's so easy. Like every time someone is screwing someone else over, like everyone knows in like no time, right?
Yeah. If I can ask you this, Mads, so for your audience that's out there, why do you think that people are so afraid of sales? What is the fear?
I mean, honestly, like with myself, like I'm not particularly afraid of sales, but
Mm-hmm.
like as a lot of typical type engineers and so on, like if you're not particularly comfortable naturally just talking with human beings, that's definitely something that put a dampener on the enthusiasm around sales. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. Like at one job, I was trying to do some cold calling for sales, and I can tell you, I would literally rather slit my wrist than do it. Like
Cold calling's tough.
phoning up random people that have no idea who I am and trying to sell them some sort of crap service or whatever. Like honestly, if it was life or death, I would probably die.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's how I feel about randomly harassing innocent people, um, to put it politely. But that's how I feel, right? And I know a lot of people, like particularly in the tech industry, like tech founders, web developers, and the likes, that really struggle with that. Let's call it human contact to some extent, right? And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I mean, through management, I've learned a ton about networking, communication, and so on. And I'm 100 times more comfortable with people face to face and so on. But still, to this day, like if I had to randomly call up people that never heard about me, like that would be really damn difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just, it's not that I don't enjoy it. I would hate if people did it to me, and therefore I don't want to do it to them, if that makes sense.
Exactly right. What I found, and it's a very simple concept, but what I found throughout my past 10 years of doing sales, because I got to be honest, when I first got into the sales world, I needed a job, but my boss told me that I was going to be a territory sales manager, and I said, "Oh, I don't know about this." He's like, "Well, you're going to be a sales engineer. Does that make you feel any better?" It's like, "Well, it does," but I still was very unsure. If we think about this on a very baseline level, instead of thinking about sales as the guy that's in a suit and a tie, and he's got the slick back hair, maybe he's got his glasses on with his pen in his pocket, all the right things. Maybe he's got a gold watch, whatever the connotation may be. If we think of sales as very simple, it's your customer is here and he's trying to get here. And there's a gap in between the two. So your customer has a current situation and he's looking for something in the future. Again, don't target somebody who doesn't have a problem, who doesn't have a need. But they're looking for something in the future. Your job as a salesman, this is coming from an engineer, your job is to problem solve. All you want to do, that gap there in the middle, the only thing that we want to do as guys and girls is be able to fill that gap. So how can I help this customer get from where they are to where they need to be? And really all you're doing is you're becoming a problem solver. And that's the same thing when you're on the phone, when you're in person, whether you're writing an email, you're doing something on your YouTube channel, whatever the medium might be. We're just trying to solve problems for our customer. So if we think about this kind of in an engineering standpoint, I just want to think about, okay, so if my customer had an objection, so what's the objection? What's in the way? Well, let's just figure out how to solve that problem. And whether it's you're on a sales call or it's a long-term sales cycle, again, whether it's something that you can close in 30 minutes and on the phone, or if it's something that closes maybe in 6 months to a year, maybe a large corporate contract. We're always going to be doing this. Sales is always about solving problems. And you just want to have little micro wins all along the way. You want to win small, medium, large, and eventually you get to win the sale in the end. But if we think about it in terms of we're just solving problems, I think that takes the pressure off people a ton. People think, oh, I'm really just a problem solver. I'm not a pushy sales guy. I mean, it's a huge hack per se.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. So what are some of the other issues that you think some of the audience members might run into?
So number one is knowing and charging the value, right? Like a ton of people feel like a fraud. Mm-hmm. Like honestly, I've worked with so many clients, and I'm no sales coach in any way, but like I've seen so many people severely undercharging themselves and like undercharging their services, right? And it ruins their entire business model because again, like I work with a client who like he would literally do like SEO, website building, ads. He would do the whole thing for a client, and he would charge them like $500 or $1,000 a month, and he would literally spend like 20 hours a week or something, right? Which means, I mean, if he had 3 clients, he was like doing 60-hour weeks, right? And like the guy was so damn good, like he could charge 5 times what he was charging at least, right? And he was just not comfortable with it. Like he wasn't comfortable charging people that amount of money. He wasn't really generally just comfortable asking for not just the sale, but like the price, right? And again, like my philosophy have always been trying to understand what's the value you give to your client, right? Like with my management coaching, like if I see a company double or triple a couple of months after I work with them, like I know that have a, a significant value, right? So, but trying to like understand what's the actual value that you're bringing to the table, because that often, at least for me, that makes it a little bit easier charging what you charge, right? And like I've worked with so many people, and I've seen what my work does with them, and I've seen the reaction they have. I've seen the reaction their organizations have to that work, and that's something that have helped me become much more comfortable. But I mean, even as an individual, like I've raised my prices a lot of times, and
Mm-hmm.
again, every time you're like, "Ooh, I'm used to saying 1,500. Now you're saying 2,000, or you're used to saying 3,000. Now you're saying 3.5." Like those, even those small steps for you feels really big, but for most clients, they're like, "Okay," and you're like, "Why did I say 3.5 and not 4.5 or 5.5 or whatever?" Right? But again, like for me, for a lot of entrepreneurs, it comes gradually, and like I always recommend, like the best thing to do is, from my experience, is really building your lead funnel, right? Because if you have plenty of leads coming in, it's much easier to sort of say, okay, I'm fully busy, but instead of turning people away, actually starting upping your prices. Because if you feel you're fully worked, and you then knock up your prices quite a bit, and they still say yes, that one indication that your services is worth it, and two, it means you should probably look at letting go of some of your less well-paying clients, obviously in a sensible, good manner, but that's a good way, right? And a second thing is, like, a lot of people have been around forever, and they've had clients for like 6 years, and they're still charging them the same they were charging them 6 years ago, right? So
Mm-hmm.
also sort of learning to charge more to existing clients. And again, for me, the best way is if you get new clients in at a higher tier, and you're sort of saying, well, I'm actually too busy now to handle this whole thing, and then actually take your existing clients. I would normally recommend doing it one at a time, but then say, hey, by the way, from 2 months from now, the prices are going up to this because business is expensive and our expenses increase, etc., and see what happens, right? And if you do it one at a time, like, you might have some fall off, and that works, and you might have some that don't, right? But like, a lot of clients manage to sometimes double or triple their prices for the exact same service, but it's still super, super worth it to the clients, which just makes such a huge difference, right?
Mm-hmm. Makes a huge difference, and it's funny because this is in my program called the High Ticket Momentum. This is actually module number 1, because you got to know exactly what you're worth. So understand what your true value is, right? And so I can say that if I had gone to the first gentleman that was doing SEO, and you said he was charging, what was he charging, $500 a month to do 20 hours worth of work?
Yeah, $500 or $1,000 a month or something.
So let's just say, he was charging $500 a month, and I had no idea who he was. And I found another gentleman who was charging $2,000 a month to do SEO, to drive a lot of traffic to my website, to get people in my pipeline. Naturally, I would take the $500 person price, the $500 priced individual, and I would put him aside. I wouldn't even look into him. I wouldn't even consider him. I'd say, you know what? Wow, only $500 a month? I don't want that service. I got to talk to the $2,000 a month guy. That guy really knows what he's talking about.
And that's what happens, right? That's exactly what I see happen continuously. And the problem is, the only people picking the $500 guy is the people with no money, desperate for success. And the only people horrible to please is the people with no money, right?
That's where you get refunds, you get chargebacks, because they don't have any money to begin with. They don't have enough skin in the game to actually see a result, and they're probably the ones that aren't going to take action either. Because if you only pay $500 a month, then, I guess I blew $500, so it's not really that big of a deal. Might as well do something else. Now the $2,000 a month guy, I'm going to want to take action on that guy. I'm invested 150%. So you got to be able to know. Well, first off, in sales, especially in high ticket sales, you want to understand what you're worth. So what is it that you had to go through to get this transformation? Why is it that you're successful? Like, why are you able to talk educated, and why are you an expert on whatever it is that you do? Did you have to go through schooling? What did the schooling cost you? Did you have certain hurdles that you're able to overcome? Can you help your customers navigate through the potholes? Like, how much money are you actually going to help them achieve as an ROI? And how much money are you going to help them save by not going down the wrong road? So for people to really understand what they're worth, they really got to first, they got to take a deep dive down into what they went through as a person. It's like, okay, so you may take it for granted what you know, because we're all in here, right now. You're in your place, and you may think that, well, I'm just kind of where I'm at. Maybe I'm not a millionaire, or maybe I'm not a billionaire, whatever it may be. I don't really know too much, but I've been through a lot, and yeah, my stuff is pretty valuable, but I'm just okay. A lot of people don't really understand what they've been through throughout the past 10, 20, 30 years of their life, whatever it may be. Maybe you take it for granted that SEO is so easy. It's like, well, all you got to do is put in the keywords, long tail words, short tail.
That's one thing I see particularly in this online marketing world, because a lot of people don't have the education, or they don't have they haven't spent 5 years in the school learning this thing. Like that's one of the things that I often feel makes them more uncomfortable charging what they're worth, right? And yeah, I mean, that's at least one of the things I see sort of pretty consistent come up. Like, how can I charge that? It only takes me 20 minutes. And you're like, well, it's not really the time it takes you. It's those 5 years you have spent learning how to make it take 20 minutes, right?
How many thousands of dollars did you spend trying to figure that stuff out? How many long, endless nights did you spend on your computer trying to figure out which long tail keyword that you actually had to use in order to get your SEO ranking up to the top of the Google search? Say, oh, that's right. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, I was really struggling with that. I drank several beers every single night because I was so stressed out. My girlfriend left me, whatever it was. I mean, I can guarantee you that people have gone through things that they really don't realize how quickly they can shortcut others to success if they really help teach things in the proper way. So it's a big thing in sales. You really got to understand what you're worth. Granted, you gotta have a good product. We're not in this world to sell hopes and dreams to people, which unfortunately some out there are. But if you're that individual who's not trying to sell hopes and dreams, if you're really trying to sell what your self-worth is, you got to be able to charge what you're worth, or else people will never pay you, because they're not going to value and they're not going to understand that you do have the keys to the Magic Kingdom. You got the keys to the castle.
Yep, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, which is huge. But yeah, I mean, I always so everything in sales has taught me that it's not about being the sleazy used car sales guy. This isn't any old school tips and tricks. This isn't a single word that you're going to say to make the sale happen. This is about solving a problem. Now, there are things about being persistent, not pushy, but being persistent to be in front of the customer, because in a digital age, especially in this digital age here today, whether it's Facebook or it's Instagram, or it's the advertisement that you see on the mall, or it's the banner that you see on the side of the road when you're driving down the highway, there's so many things in this day and age that are distracting. So it's hard for individuals to pay attention to you. And you do have to be in front of your customer. You do have to be able to not tag them, but you have to be able to follow up. You have to be able to be visible on Instagram or in person or through webinar or from the YouTube channel that Mads is doing right here. You always want to be able to be in front of people so you can show them and you can educate them exactly what your value is so that they understand who you are. But again, that's not being pushy. It's just being present in the market. So there's a difference between being present and being pushy, but then once you're present, once you've captured their attention, you need to be able to solve their problem. So sales it's a lot more complex than I think that people realize. It's not all about the 30-minute phone call or the 30-second elevator pitch. It's not that easy. It's not that simple. But again, where your customer is and where your customer needs to be, there's a gap in the middle and they need to solve that problem. There's actually, a lot of people ask me questions, Mads, about the sales call or about the sales process in general. And I've got a proprietary system. It's insanely simple. It's a 3-step system. It's what I call the sales call triangle. Now, the reason why I picked a triangle is because anybody can remember a 3-step system. And the triangle is one of the strongest shapes out there, if not the strongest shape, because I think it can take pressure from each different side of the triangle. Now, on the very first step of that triangle is listening. So the very first thing that if the audience here today can take away anything from this conversation, I want them to take this away. The first thing is listening. Listen to your customers. If you ask them the right question, they're going to tell you the whole story. They're going to give you what the problem is. They'll tell you exactly where they're looking to go. Now, why is that beneficial? Because you can figure out exactly if you're going to be a solution for them or not, and you're going to find out actually what the problem is. A lot of times in my teachings with sales, with teaching people how to be able to sell more of a high-ticket offer, how to actually validate their high-ticket offer, there's many different obstacles that could be in the way. You know, one, maybe they don't understand what the self-worth is. 2, maybe they don't understand how to do the 30-second pitch. 3, maybe they don't understand how to deliver on their high-ticket offer. But until I actually know what the problem is, until I ask the right question, I need to be able to listen and actually hear what the problem is that the customer has. So that's step 1. No matter what the situation is, that's always step 1. Step 2, the second side to that triangle is connecting. You got to be able to make a connection with your customer, whether that's understanding how they talk in person. And maybe you can connect with them on a personal level. So say maybe they have a wife and kids and you have a wife and kids as well. Maybe they like the outdoors and you like the outdoors as well. It's human nature to naturally connect to somebody who is very similar to them. So whether it's speaking in a certain manner that they speak in, to be able to connect with them there, whether it's being in the same physical location. For myself, it would be in Los Angeles, California, or in the UK, or in Australia, just to be able to say, okay, do you understand? Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's crazy. We had that crazy lightning storm the other night. Man, did that scare your kids too? It really did. That small little thing, that connection, it gives you so much credibility as a person because they say, oh, you know, this person isn't in here just trying to hard sell me this. So that's the second part to the triangle. So we have listening, we have connecting, and the third one is very critical as well. It's at the very tip and top of their triangle, but you got to be able to speak. So it's speaking. You do have to be able to tell the customer. So now that you've listened to their problems and connected with them, you got to tell them how you're going to solve their problem. So this is the pitch. This is the most exciting part because you take all the ammunition that your customer has given you throughout the whole process and you fire it right back. You say, okay, I understand what your problem is, and I actually have the solution to this problem. It's great that we're connected. Here's the reason why we're going to be able to work so well together. And that's the speaking part. So you do need to have your pitch down. You do need to really understand what the service is that you can provide to your customer and just be able to execute it. And those are the 3 sides of the triangle. Sales is really, it's that easy. Only 3.
Sounds easy. Sounds easy.
It's very easy, but sales is just like any other skill. It's something that's not manipulated is the right word. It's a skill that you're actually able to learn. It's something that you practice. The more the practice, the more you do it, the more comfortable that you become, and the better that you get. So just like with everything else.
And that's very much how I look at management, right? Like I have so many entrepreneurs saying to me, "Oh, I'm really good at SEO, but I can't learn management." And I'm like, SEO is probably like 5-10 times as complicated as management is. If you can learn SEO, you can definitely learn like management to a certain degree, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, that makes a ton of sense the way you're saying it. So
yeah, and then, I mean the huge question too is, have you tried? Have you tried to learn management? Have you failed? Because the faster you fail, the more that you learn. And until we actually get outside of our comfort zone and start trying new things, then we're going to be stagnant in the place that you are. And if you think that your monetary income is going to increase by just being stagnant, you're wishing for things that aren't going to come. If you're trying to increase your self-worth by not learning anything new, it's just, you might as well play the lottery. That's probably a better bet.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. So is there Is there anything else, Mads, that I can help your audience out here with?
I think that's about it, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Well, I really had a fun time talking with you, Mads. It's always a pleasure here to be on any sort of these programs. My main goal is to give as much value, whether it's a podcast or it's a YouTube channel or it's a Facebook Live, any sort of things out there. But I think this is knowledge that really needs to be given out into this world. And as long as people take this information and they execute upon it, and just realize that sales is simple as the three sides of that triangle, as listening, connecting, and speaking, and just getting out of your comfort zone and doing it day by day, people are going to succeed. There's no ifs or buts about it.
Thank you so much for joining me here, Andrew. And yeah, I look forward to talk to you again. I'll make sure to tag you when we get the video live in case the audience have any amazing questions for you.
Fantastic, Mads. All right, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.